Bienvenidos a Taboo Talk Latina Edition. Yo soy Cynthia.
And I'm Jeanette.
We're here to create a safe space where Latinas can be real, raw, and share their authentic stories. Este es un lugar donde celebramos nuestras raíces, but also confrontamos esos tabús que nos afectan.
En este show vamos a romper el silencio sobre las expectativas culturales y tradicionales que nos han marcado. Y lo hacemos con conversaciones honestas y profundas. Nuestra misión es inspirar, empoderar y conectar a todas las mujeres latinas y lo que hacen nuestras experiencias únicas.
So whether you're tuning in to hear a powerful story or join the conversation, this is your space to embrace who you really are. Ahora, déjame presentarle a nuestra increíble invitada de hoy. Natalie Marino is a passionate Latina entrepreneur and business strategy with a love of tech and helping others grow. She's the founder and CEO of S&T Consulting, where she's worked with small businesses and entrepreneurs to create innovative and tailored tech solution. Recently, her and her husband took on an exciting new venture running a fast sign franchise in Pembroke Pines, Florida. Beyond business, Natalie is a dedicated mom and mentor, empowering women and underrepresented groups in tech through workshops and retreats. We're so excited to have you today.
Bienvenida, Natalie.
Thank you guys so much for having me.
Yes, thank you. Y ahora que ya conocemos un poquito más de nuestra invitada, let's jump right into los temas de hoy. First, we'll talk about how technology can empower Latina and small businesses to innovate, grow, and thrive.
Una de inspiración. So let's dive in.
Bridging the gap, empowering Latinas and small businesses through technology. Natalie, you've dedicated your career to helping entrepreneurs and small businesses use technology to elevate their work. When did you decide you wanted to focus on empowering Latinas and small businesses?
Oh, that's a good one. I think that was like at the very beginning of my journey as an entrepreneur because I didn't quite know what I wanted to do. And in the process, before the Latina Techie platform became what it was, I just realized within the technology space that from my corporate life that I was a part of, I was in HR technology. There wasn't a lot of Latinas in the spaces that I was in. Definitely a lot of Latinos, but not a lot of powerhouse Latinas understanding how to facilitate technology, how to break things down in terms of what our clients needed and things like that. So that was always kind of like at the forefront of my mind of how can I show my Latinas that they also belong in these spaces so that they can also make money or make career advances, because I think like who better than the mind of a Latina? I always use this analogy of like when you walk into a cafeteria, like what do you see? Right? You pretty much majority of the time, it's all ran by women. They're the ones opening the shop. They're the ones running the orders. They're the pretty much project managing things, right? If you want to put titles to it. And I'm from Puerto Rico and just coming from the women that are in my family, it's like who better to continue to facilitate the innovation of certain technologies than Latina women?
I love that because technology, especially in the industry, like it's known as it's male dominated, right? So when it comes from a Latina and hearing your story, it inspires other Latinas to want to jump in, because if not, they feel out of place or they feel they're going to be judged or a man is not going to understand them or their perspective. So I love that you're doing that because it's opening the doors for other Latinas to feel like they also belong.
That's the point, right? Like, I feel like there's so many buzzwords these days about like imposter syndrome and I feel like it kind of makes women feel like we're already inadequate out of the gate, right? And it's like, there's a difference between not belonging in a space and then there's also or feeling like you don't belong in a space, but then it's another different entirely if you've actually never done something before, right? Yeah. So that's just you just not being particularly educated in that specific topic or whatever, or a specific role, if you will. So even with my mentees, I always try to shift the imposter syndrome of maybe we don't look at it from not belonging in a space, but maybe take a look at it as we just lack the knowledge of that particular thing at hand. So let's take a look at the resources that we have to get us closer to that goal.
Oh, yeah, that's good. Yeah. And it's all about the mindset, like you said, right? Just shifting that mindset. Yeah. And what you're doing is amazing because you're you're kind of, doing the path for other Latinas. So what you're doing is amazing. If anyone ever feels intimidating, looking at you and what you're doing is awesome.
Thank you.
It is. Natalie, and I have a question. Muchas mujeres sienten que la tecnología es complicado fuera de su alcance. So, ¿qué consejo les daría a esas personas que quieren usar la tecnología para mejorar su negocio, pero no sabe dónde empezar? Because you think about technology and you're like, okay, how can I utilize it for my business? So how do you do it?
So I take it, I'm a back to basics gal. So I take it back to what are we doing today, right? Like, how do you run your business? What's your business model? What do you sell? How do you make money? And I always ask like those very basic questions, right? If it's a hairdresser, okay, how do your clients come to you? How do you get paid? All the way to an accounting firm, how do your clients interact with you? And 9 times out of 10, 10 times out of 10, the conversations that I'll have with certain business owners is that we're already using technology. We're already using Gmail, Microsoft, Excel, and it's just a matter of understanding how the resources that we already either pay for or we get for free, and starting from processes from the very beginning to see, okay, what can we leverage that you already have? And what do we need to either go out and find in the market that exists for your business? Or for certain founders, if they're ready to build proprietary technology, then, we move them over to, okay, we're going to work with software developers and designers to make something specific just for you and your business. But I always take it back to the basics. And I really just start asking, like, what is your business? What do you do? How do you sell? How do you attract your clientele? And then how do you manage your day-to-day? And then typically kind of the pain points and things like that start to appear. And we start to kind of digest, okay, well, we start to kind of parcel like each problem, if you will, to then turn around and find a solution that sometimes our founders already have at their fingertips, or we just need to go find something that exists already in the market for them to just go ahead and implement.
Yeah, that's great. And it's something taking it back to basic that sometimes we get so overwhelmed because, again, with technology, we feel like all we see nowadays is content creators and influencers, right? And then we kind of lose track that we can use it for our own businesses, like career, right? Like even if you're a nurse, a doctor, like educate people, you're in technology. And we take that for granted because, again, we're so into like the world that we live in now that we just see content of people just you're laughing all day and you don't take it serious, right?
Exactly.
So I love that perspective.
Everything's apurado. And I think sometimes as business owners, we feel like we're behind the 8 ball, when in reality, it's like when you look at your phone, right? I always do, like every time I'm on a stage or something, when people are like, oh, I'm not so techie, I'm like, but when I look at your phone, you have all these little apps. And you know what I mean? Like you have all these apps, or we go home, you have a smart lock to get into your house. You have a smart fridge. You have Alexas all over the place. You have iPads. And it's like, we are more techie than we give ourselves credit for. And fact of the matter is, working in a corporate job, most of us are all using technology in our jobs, right? So kind of just to segue a little bit in terms of breaking into technology as a career, I always start with back to the basics, like what industry do you want to work in? Like, what industry do you want to work in, to then for you to understand what technology you want to facilitate, sell, or build. Because if you're in let's say you want to be in the beauty field, right? I want to work for Sephora. Sephora has their application. They use tons of technology for their color shade mapping. There's so much technology in the beauty space. But if you're working for a construction firm, when you're building technology for them, it isn't as fulfilling for you when you want to be in a completely different industry. 100%. So always go back to, there's technology in every space, especially now we're in 2025, right? So it's just a matter of kind of finding where you want to be and what impact you want to make in those specific spaces.
Very powerful, because that's where we lose sight, right? We get lost. It's because we don't know where to start. We already have all the tools. It's just a matter of like really aligning yourself with what you want to do. And okay, now what do I need to do in order to get there?
Yeah.
Beautiful message.
And exactly. I get that question, like, how do I break into tech? I'm like, well, when you do your job, how many systems does it take for you to do one case or one ticket? And you start uncovering like, oh, I use 6 different systems. Some of us have one system for here, one system for this, one system for that. Then we're in Excel tracking things. And I'm like, next thing you know, well, have we ever thought to maybe look at open positions in your particular organization that are a little bit more technology facing? And then we start the wheels start turning of like, oh yeah, I don't have to leave a company. I can stay in the same company and move into a more technology facing role.
I love that.
Yeah. And I was going to say, that's me. I'm always like, I'm not tech savvy. I tell Jeanette all the time, what we're working here in, Taboo Talks. I'm always like, I'm not tech savvy. I don't know how to use this, or I don't know how to use that. But like you said, like, look at your phone, right?
Look at your phone, your microphone, this app we're using, right? Or the platform, I should say.
We don't give ourselves enough credit.
That's exactly right,
It's
Jeanette.
always like, I can because I don't know enough. You already know enough. It's just unfolding it and realizing it.
Back to the imposter syndrome. It's like, is it necessarily that you don't belong or you're not deserving of this knowledge? It's just we've never like when we become moms, right? Like my first time as a mom, I don't want to say I fumbled, but by the time I was my second baby was so much easier than my first. You see? But it's like, it's just because I just didn't know. Now, the more you know, the better you do.
And we still learn as we went, so it's like, that's what people have, like, you still have to figure it out, and just people stop themselves because they don't know.
Yes. And we know that technology not only helps businesses grow, but can also make a big difference in communities. How do you see the future when it comes to opening more doors for mujeres Latinas in the tech world?
For me personally, I think that I always, caution, like, the more you seek, the more will come to you, right? Especially within that. And that rings true for anything in your life, right? Like, if you're seeking to become more spiritual, you'll become more aligned with people that are in that same path. If you're, on the mom journey, you start attracting more moms. It's the same thing with your career. So when you start seeking opportunities, the more come to you so that we can continue to innovate and make more impact in our careers. But I think for Latinas in general, I think that we're starting to wake, as much as we're not a monolith, I think as a community, we're starting to wake up, whether it be the temperature of the world and what's going on. I think we're realizing how powerful we are as Latinas and how I feel like we're at a point now in our journey where it's like, ¿qué pasa después que ya tú te sientes empoderada? Like, what happens after you're empowered? We feel all this motivation. So now what? And I think that now what is what we're seeing with a lot of our women in our spaces that are hungry for knowledge and continuing to build community and continuing to make impact.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I was just going to say, and I see now more than ever, so many communities being built, especially the Latina community. And it's beautiful because you look back 5-10 years ago and that didn't exist, right? So then you think about our parents, right? What they had to go through basically alone, right? Because that village or that community wasn't there. And then now here we are, and I look around and I'm like, I see all these beautiful Latina communities being built, and it's just amazing.
And when you start looking around, it does make a difference. It's like what you said, Natalie, when you start aligning yourself, like if it's with your beliefs in a career path, with friendships, you start attracting it. And the same thing. And the other day, it's like I was driving and I heard something in the radio, and it's like, well, some people say, oh, I don't have a Tesla, but then all of a sudden you get a Tesla and you start seeing it everywhere, right? And it's like you're like, wait, but that's not fair. Like, I never saw anybody with Tesla. Now I have one and everyone has one. No, it's always been there. It's just that you were not seeing it because it was not like something you were attracting. But now that you have it, you feel like everyone has one, right? So that goes back with what you said, Natalie, it's like you attract. In the community, same thing. If you start looking for the community aligned with either technology, you might not know it exists, but look, talking to you now, there is a community of women in technology, right? There is one for women empowerment. There is one for podcasting. Like, there's for anything, but you have to be determined and know what you're looking for to find it.
Absolutely.
Yes, that's beautiful. And now let's move on to our second question. So, balancing motherhood and ambition, redefining success as a Latina. Natalie, you're not only a successful entrepreneur, but also a mom. How do you balance family and your business without feeling any guilt or being drained? Because that's a big one, right? For all of us. We're all mamas.
As Latinas, especially Catholic Latinas, I feel like the guilt never goes away.
Yes.
That's just something that is ingrained in us, unfortunately. So I feel like the guilt is always there, right? So in order for me to kind of combat the guilt, I have to constantly go back to my kind of my own basics. I go back to my basics of what are our priorities, right? The kids are number one. My marriage is number one. God as well. I feel like those are my 3 pillars. And once those are good, then I can take care of the rest. And I say that because I've been in positions where those weren't my priorities and I was running myself ragged. I was overworked, overstimulated, really burnt out. And, now being 37, mom of 2, I've just realized that in order for me to be good, in order for me to do good, I have to be good. My kids have to be good. My husband has to be good. My house, mi hogar, tiene que estar bien.
Yeah.
Si yo no puedo estar en la calle ayudando a nadie. Like I just,
100%.
it just doesn't, the math doesn't math, as they say.
Yeah.
Right. So and then in terms of balancing motherhood, I feel like I heard this one time, I don't know what podcast or something I heard it on, but like as women, I feel like we can have it all, but we can't have it all at the same time. Right. And I think that as women and as moms, we start to understand, whether it's fair or not, just the seasons of life that we go through, right? Like when you're in the newborn phase, I don't call it jail, but like you're in the newborn phase and you're there for a while until maybe your baby's about 2 or 3, until you can kind of like get out of that jail and now you can become your own woman again. I think that when you really kind of go back and like lean into those seasons of your life and what your purpose is for that particular time, I think that makes life a little bit easier when it comes to work, when it comes to producing, when it comes to making money, any of those things. I think that, yeah, you just have to really honor the season you're in. Even right now, like I've taken a huge step back from not my clients or anything like that, but like my marketing efforts have not been the same because I've really been supporting my husband, right? Like for a while he was supporting me and my business and my efforts, and now it became kind of his turn. So it's just kind of like really leaning into whatever season of your family's in so that the whole house is thriving.
Yeah.
I love that reminder, Natalie, because I feel that we live in a world that we're always in a rush, right? Like what's next? We finally got the phone we wanted, and now it's like, okay, but what's next after the phone, right? Like you don't get to fully enjoy that you got the phone. So it's like those little things, it's like just the little things, the bigger things, really enjoying the season because we're always on the go. And once we start really acknowledging it, it makes a difference because we're all moms. And I know that I went from being a whole complete different person to being a mom and a totally different person after that. Everybody's like, you were all of this? I'm like, yeah, right? But it's crazy. But I'm like, but that was my time then, my time doing, and my time now. And that's what we're having a hard time understanding, that there's those stages that like I enjoy my kids when they were little. Now I got to start pouring back into me even more so I can continue to be the present mom, the better wife, the household, the friend, right? The mentor, like whatever I want to be. But if I don't pour into myself, then we're nothing. So the fact that you said that,
what's the point?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can't preach, right? What we don't do. So it's not like I'm going to give you so much and I'm going to help the community. But what are you doing for your own community? Like your home, those you love. And that makes a difference.
Absolutely. Yeah. And going back a little, when it comes to balancing work and then your family, I remember my director once told me, work will always be there. Always remember that. Because I was at a point in my career, I'm in, corporate America, where I was just like all about work, work, work. And my firstborn, unfortunately, there was a lot of things that I missed because I was trying to build my career. I wanted to make it to a certain level in the corporate world. And thank God for her. Like, she was my director, right? She could have been like, yeah, let Cynthia keep, working her butt off. And she stopped me and she was like, remember, work is always going to be here. You leave today, you'll be replaced, and then somebody else is going to pick up your job. But your son's, performance or whatever it is you're missing, that you're going to miss and never get again. So that's always something that's like instilled in me that I wanted to share with you girls.
That's beautiful. You can be replaced.
I was the same. I had my oldest, Sophia, at 27, and I was younger than my other peers. Most of my friends waited till their 30s, mid 30s to have babies. So like my best friend, 37, just had a baby. So had different seasons of life, if you will. And I was like the perpetual daycare mom. I just assumed like that could offer at the time. I was just so I'm a Capricorn, right? So I'm very career focused, and I was so focused on my own career path. Then 2020, right? That changed, I think, everybody on the planet's life and their own trajectory. And my son was, so I had a 4-year-old and a 7-month-old at the time. And that was the first time I ever really had this epiphany of like, wow, motherhood could actually look different. And I actually had to like learn how to be a non-daycare mom. Because when you're a daycare mom, you wake up, they go to school, you come home from work, you pick them up, you maybe have 2-3 hours with your kids, not really, right? And in those 2-3 hours, you're doing dinner, bath, bedtime. And then my weekends were all I had. And I just thought that was normal. A lot of us probably thought that was normal.
Yes.
And then I felt like I was really blessed with the whole dawn of remote work and things of that nature. For that kind of gave me the paradigm shift of like, oh, maybe my purpose was none of these things. Like maybe that's not what I ever, like, I feel like, and we see it a lot, like we girl bossed a little too hard. And right, I'm like, I missed a lot of Sophie's life because I just assumed that this is how life was supposed to be.
Yeah, of course.
And then I was able to really enjoy my second, and then, be a present mom. I work from home today. So like I am home. I'm like the home and the hearth and all the things. And it's just so different than Natalie 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I never would have thought. Never.
What happens es que en nuestra cultura esperamos siempre que las mujeres pongan a la familia por encima de sus propias metas.
Yeah.
But it's missing those little memories that later you look back and like Cynthia said, we won't be able to get them back.
Yeah.
But then everything else is replaced because of who we are. They always say, yeah, you got to put everything in front. We do, but then we don't notice that we are working for them, but we're missing out on what's important, which is them. So it never made sense.
Exactly. Like it was so counterintuitive, counterproductive. Yeah. Like I remember waking up and being like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, what are my priorities? Like I'm killing myself for what? For money? Money's great. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that we shouldn't be out making sure that we can take care of ourselves and our family and to also provide to our households. But yeah, my priorities were definitely not what I needed them to be in those days. But at the same time, I don't think we had the exposure, right? Like 10 years
100%.
ago, even like from a health perspective, even the chemicals we give to our children, like nothing was ever, we're more aware, I think, as women, and as mothers, as to like what's actually happening in the world.
Yeah. And I think the pandemic kind of, like you said, Natalie, it kind of like shook the world, right? It kind of like woke everyone up when it comes to that, like the career wise and putting, your career first and not your family. Because like you said, we would hustle every day, 9 to 5, come home, pick up the kids, shower. And now that I also work from home, I think about it and I'm like, how was I going every single Monday through Friday? I would drive an hour to the office, be there 9 to 5.
Yes, maquillada, the kids dressed, hair done, to school, lunches. Like I think about that now. I'm like, I could never do that. I could never go back to that.
Especially when you get comfortable on not doing that anymore.
Yes.
You're like, wait, I can do this and that and still be here. Like it's mind blowing, right?
It is. It's like a little, like I feel blessed. That's honestly, like I feel I have had a big grateful heart, if you will. And I think that gratitude also plays in line with the alignment that we were talking about earlier, Jeanette. Like the more grateful, the more aligned, like the more opportunities and just the more goodness you're surrounded with.
Which it makes a difference. And that's actually something that we need, talking now about like community too, because women need to help each other, right? And they need to support each other. And I feel that that's what's happening now, especially when they become mothers and wanting to run a business or running a business, they have that path that you have to choose. So from your perspective, everything you shared today is a reminder that you don't, you just have to align yourself because that's what matters. It's really recognizing what is it that you want to do and knowing that there is a season too, because when we are mom, the first stage of like the first 2-3 years, like you said, it's tough. And I know it's going to be tough running a business, especially if you want to launch a business, right? So it's setting also those realistic goals on the timing, but enjoying the season and knowing that you can do both, but there is a time for that.
That's absolutely correct.
Yes.
Because it's hard. It's tough.
It is hard.
but we
It's
can
beautiful,
definitely
but
do it.
hard.
Yeah. And like I always go by this too that says, you know, we can do it all, but we don't have to. Because as women, they're like, we can do it all. And I share this on another episode because I was talking to someone and they said, yeah, but we're women. Like, we can do it all. Like, we don't need to hire this. We don't need to do that. Like, we can figure it out. I'm like, yes, but we don't have to. And that's what makes a difference of you making it or breaking it, right? Because it kind of stands that line of, well, I can do it all, but what can I give away to others? Or what do I need help on? Because that's another thing, we don't ask for help.
Yeah, I want that on a
Huge.
shirt. I want that printed on a shirt because I don't want to do it all.
As
Yeah.
Latinas, I feel like we, and especially our mothers and our abuelas and bisabuelas and tias, I think that we, especially because most of the generations above us were all focused on survival, right? Like they were just surviving. And we're the generation that gets to choose, right? We're more aware than our mothers ever were, right? Like my mom had none of these resources that we have today.
Yeah.
And I can't even blame them, you know, like she was just surviving. And now I think that we're very blessed to be able to write our stories with a different pen, if you will.
Yeah, and it's crazy that you mentioned that because I was thinking about that the other day with a friend, how our parents didn't have those resources. So can you just imagine all the emotions that they just kind of like blocked because they didn't know how to express themselves, right? Mental health wasn't a thing. You didn't talk about that. So I was like thinking about that the other day. I was like, man, I just cannot imagine everything that they held back because they weren't able to speak up, especially, you know, on their emotions. I've never heard like my mom growing up complaining, and she was a hustler. Like she did it all. She took us to school. She was working. At one point, she had 2 jobs, working morning shift, night shift, and I never heard her complain. So it's just that generation. It's a different breed.
And I feel that
this is, I'm sorry.
no, please go ahead.
I'm like, this is the same generation that, you know.
Yeah.
To say that. And it's that mindset that we're scared of too, of breaking it. Because I mean, we always talk about this because we are so aligned, right? It's crazy. Like housekeepers, going back to that topic, because that's a very like powerful one, right? Because going back, my mom didn't have that and my grandma would do it all, or like they would take turns. I will have a housekeeper here and my mom thinks that I'm rich. I'm making billions of dollars, right? But it's that mindset of like, oh, pero como tú tienes dinero para buscar a alguien que te limpie. And I'm like, mom, it's like really executing like somebody so I can get help and I can pour into my business, my things, my kids, you know? And just get the help because I can. Why not? But it's that mindset that I feel like Latinas, we don't want to confront because we don't want issues. We don't want them to think any different of us. But there's nothing wrong with that. Like you said, Natalie, we are in different stages now. So we're kind of breaking that.
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Natalie, so much. You know, ya llegamos al fin de nuestra conversación, pero antes de cerrar, tenemos una pregunta para ti. Because let's be real, we all know que tenemos esa tía chismosa.
La que siempre tiene algo que decir de lo que estamos haciendo. Entonces, tell us everything. ¿Qué te dijo o te ha dicho tu tía chismosa?
So I have my Instagram page, I will say, the Latina Techie, that sparked a lot of, I don't want to say controversy in the family. Hablar, tú sabes, que Natalie está haciendo, está convierte como un influencer and this and that and this and that, y mira lo que está haciendo. Si ella hace dinero, the haterade a little bit of like, they always have something to say, but they're so interested. So I'm like,
yeah.
You know, you can just like ask me and we don't have to be haters about this.
Te tiran pullitas, right? To
yeah,
kind of
like, you can just be cool. Like, you want to do it, like, not, and I'm not a TikToker, but I'll have cousins who are, you know, and then I'll have like the little cousins who love it and they'll be like, oh, do a TikTok dance with me or this or that. And I'm like, you know, we could just like, or I'll tag them in something and they love that I did that. And I'm just like, you know, we could just not have to talk shit, you know, like, or go to my mom every time I post, you know, it's so crazy, the world of social media. And I bring that up because don't let that stop anybody from doing what it is that you're doing, because people's opinions do not pay your bills.
Sure.
Sometimes people are never, tias or family members or even friends aren't always going to understand your path and your journey of where you want to be in your branding efforts or what your mission is. So don't let that stop you from just starting, if you will, or being
That's a
embarrassed.
great
I feel like
reminder.
as Latinas, we have a lot of pena and we have a lot of shame.
Yes.
So no te da, like I always tell girls, like, sácate la pena and just like, don't worry about what, ¿qué van a decir la gente? Don't worry about that shit. Just
Siempre van a
focus on
decir algo.
Yeah, I was just gonna say.
Still scrolling. Like I said, like my mom is all day on TikTok. That's sometimes I'm like, I wish they would have banned it because it's like she doesn't. Que nosotros, and she's like constantly looking at this, that, and like she knows everything before it even comes out on the news. And I'm like, how,
Yeah.
mom? And that's not even real.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I saw that they said it on TikTok. So then I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, don't be afraid to get your business out there because your family is still scrolling. They're still supporting other people, even if they say they hate them or they don't believe what they say. They're always fighting with TikTokers. They don't even know. Focus on you, right? Post for you. And if your mission or your story or your business needs social media, like we're always scrolling, might as well make money or like get out there. Mind blowing. You have an
Exactly.
opportunity that we didn't have years ago, right? That keeps evolving.
Exactly.
So it's time to get on the train.
Exactly. Or not, or even if social media is not your thing, which is fine. Like there's times where I love it and there's times where I'm like, I don't have time for
Absolutely.
this and I'm just going to be the scroller and the lurker. And there's times where I post and I support my friends or other businesses that I believe in or other movements, I should say, that I'll believe in. I'm very big on, Puerto Rican unity and what's going on the island there. So sometimes you'll see me post like crazy things about that or politics or anything of the sort. And I just think, like, to your point, like, just start. People are going to talk anyway. So just live your life and whatever it is that you want to do, don't let other people's opinions stop you because life is short. Life is very short. And and as our motherhood journey, what we were talking about, like, like I miss my entire firstborn's, like a lot of her firsts, right? And it's like life is too short to just waiting around thinking about, ¿qué sería si, like, what if, life is too short for what ifs.
Yeah, and I always say, what's the worst that can happen, right? You get rejected, you get a no, you fall, you get back up. So that's, yes, I love that. Just go for it. Yes. And Natalie, if you would love to share your social media, please do so, like all your platforms. And of course, if you have any projects you have that you want to share.
So to get in touch with me, I am on Instagram. I respond to all my DMs. It's just me at thelatina.techie. And I have a website, www.thelatinatechie.com. As for recent projects, I have been heads down focused on my book of business in terms of building proprietary technology for some of my clients. I have an accounting firm that I'm working with right now where we're taking her spreadsheets and making them into an application so that she can interact with her clients and provide her accounting services there. So that's a very exciting project. So stay tuned. And then also supporting my husband in our new business venture. We bought a business, Fast Signs of Pembroke Pines. We're off of Palm and Pines here down in South Florida. So I have been lending my technology and operational efficiency expertise, my hat to them. In just kind of like modernizing the business. They've been in business for about 27 years. My husband was a production manager. And then the owner retired. So now it belongs to us. So I'm just really kind of managing my book, my projects. I'm still very heavily involved in my other, what do I call, I call them the communities that I'm involved in, like the VMC, the Virtual Mom Collective. We do a lot of work here with our mothers in South Florida, whether it's legislative, whether it's formula drives, diaper drives, mental health resources. We have a summit coming up in March. So yeah, I just really am kind of in a heads down mode. I can continue building what we have here and deepening our pockets so that I can turn around and bless my people on the island and more communities down here. So I'm like in a building mode right now so that in the next couple of years, I can do some really cool things with some younger women in technology as well. So that's kind of where my path is today.
That's beautiful. And we will for sure post all the links and all your social media outlets so people can go and connect with you. We are looking forward to meeting you at the event as well. We're super excited for March 1st, but
Yes.
we're so honored to have had you here, donde seguimos rompiendo tabús con preguntas rápidas y divertidas. So we'll love to have you on. We'll share more details with you on that. It's going to be so much fun.
Absolutely.
Yes. And we'll definitely also post on our stories like a box with questions. So if people want to post any questions for that live segment that we do, and then we can use those questions, whether it's for Natalie or anyone else that we bring. So that would be awesome. And then to our listeners, of course, thank you for tuning in, and, follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you, chicas. Hasta luego. Bye.